Hello everybody and welcome to another Future of the Fortress read-along. These are the monthly Q&A posts that Bay12 posts on the forums, mostly Toady1, and 3To does a little bit of writing in the mission status at the beginning. Normally these happen on the first of the month, but due to some family issues with Bay12, it didn't get posted until a couple days into the month, and by the time it got posted I was extremely busy, and now I'm sitting in my chair sweating in 32 degrees Celsius. So, without further ado, I think we should catch up for lost time and read the Future of the Fortress. If you're unfamiliar with what this is like I said, a monthly Q&A that normally happens around the first of every month. It takes place in a forum thread on the Bay12 forums. If you would like to take part in this Q&A, it's almost more like a community brainstorming session where they talk about far outlandish things that are very far off, and also the minutiae of the current day-to-day and the inner workings of Bay12. If you would like to take part in that, there's a link to the thread down in the description. Just simply sign up for a Bay12 forums account. I'm not sure how long it will take for your account to be approved. It depends on how often they check, but go sign up for an account and then you can take part in these Q&A. So let's dive in. We start off with mission status. 3To writes, "These last few weeks have been a nightmare. I'm not going to lie, but while we have been hampered by fate and destiny and all the rest, the artists and programmer have been tirelessly working on a whole bunch of stuff that we have to organize and implement. Now, I want you all to go out and make a blood sacrifice to Armok in order to help our family through these trying times. I'm really hoping it works." He means in the video game, just for reference. Please don't actually commit a blood sacrifice. Just dwarves. Congratulations to the generous. 3To. Of course, that is always followed up by Tarn's fun with numbers, and he says, "Yeah, things have not been great, with a family member suddenly battling for their life. Like 3To says, there's a lot of stuff for us to pull together now, from Linux to new art in various directions, and we'll see how all that goes. Last journey of the year to Gamescom later this month, and then PAX locally, and we should be hunkered down after that. But the next few weeks are also good for something. Dwarfort sold up a bit due to the Steam Summer Sale in July, and that's 15,000 sales, so it's all going well there." Now let's dive into the Future of the Fortress Q&A. The first question comes in from Vanzetti, and they say, "People have noted that waves breaking on the shore and foam they spread around currently look a lot less impressive in graphics mode than ASCII mode. Is there a plan to remedy this?" And Tarn's response is, "It's one of the things on the arts list. It's complicated by the existence of the actual ocean-type tiles, so would have to align with that, and making it inherently blocky. But that's been true of lots of things." Next is a quick two-parter from Nilich, and they say, "When you say that you plan everything from the old version to be on Steam, does that mean you plan to add in the old intro movies back into the game? They're iconic, and I love how they set the mood, and I use them for my intros for these videos." And the second half of their question is, "What is the nature of the code-sharing deal you've worked out with the DF Hack team? And are you taking precautions against potential copyright issues?" And Tarn's response is, "Well, these haven't made it back to Classic either. They're still in limbo in regards to the intro movies. I think it might be a bit too confusing for people to be hit with ASCII when they explicitly buy something thought to not be the ASCII version of a thing that had been solely ASCII for 20 years. But maybe it's fine." Tarn, it's fine. Just add the intro movies back in the way they were. Just do it. Just do it. Please, for the love of everything, just please do it. And in regards to the DF hack code, Tarn says, "We haven't been doing anything there. Mostly, I believe there is something involving custom key bindings Putnam sent over, and it's a small enough type of thing and so game-specific that I'm not worried about the broader copyright sourcing issues as long as the bits themselves are licensed under zlib, etc." The next question comes in from what's going to be a regular question sender in for this episode, Major Third, and they say, "Out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on the state of diplomacy and interaction between other civilizations? Do you intend to expand on diplomacy, and maybe even visiting other locations with diplomats? I absolutely love your work on this game, and will forever tip my hat to you for such an amazing life project. Potential thought on the diplomat visiting idea. Could there be a mini adventurer mini-game within Fortress mode? Maybe it utilizes a squad mode to control your diplomat and navigate the visiting fortress to reach and find said leader, all the while avoiding traps and unruly citizens or other unwanted guests at the location." And Tarn quotes Baywatcher Volleylol in his responses, so I will read their response first. And they say, As for the diplomats, the starting scenarios arc, etc., after Myths and Magic is meant to flesh out your fort's relationship with the old world, and part of that is having different diplomacy options depending on the scenario, as in your fort could be a military outpost or a roadside inn, etc. I don't think much more has been said about that due to it being quite some years into the future. Though, short term, there are notions for better communication with your own off-site armies and holdings as part of the pre-Myths and Magic army improvements. Perhaps these messengers count as diplomats. And Tarn's response is, yeah. It's as Volleylol replied. There are a few shorter-term goals involving peace discussions and raising troops and alliances that should happen before we get to the more complicated rewrites. As for actually playing them, seeing other sites and interacting with them while your fort is in play is under the multiple viewport part of the map rewrite. And that's more involved, but should all lead to all sorts of neat scenarios. The next question comes in from friend of the channel, Tekid, and he asks, with the military uniform overhaul on the table, I'm curious if it ever crossed your mind to make it possible to designate some clothing as military only. Surely there's plenty of ways to make it work, perhaps an equipment use menu akin to the stone use menu, or just a rigid priority for the military to claim uniform items before civilians. I bet that there's a dozen ways to skin such a cat. Especially with premium graphics, the idea of having a military equipped with identifying garments is compelling, at least for me. Grizzly bear leather cloaks, embroidered with the symbol of a warrior deity, and a helm studded with the visage of each forgotten beast slain by its wearer. Yes, please. To less flamboyant ends, lots of players I interact with just want the humble option to give their favorite dwarf a special shirt. And Tarn quotes this response from Eric Blank, so I will read it first. And the Baywatcher says, this suggestion has probably come up before. Yes, there's always more pressing issues in military management, like Rangers being broken right now, and the only time where this becomes particularly important anyway is when you want to issue adamantine clothing to the military. Otherwise, having your civilians just as well covered is always a good thing. If only so they survive an animal attack long enough, the militia has time to come and save them. And Tarn's response is, yeah, specific tweaks work better in suggestions, but generally it would be good to fix up stuff that makes the existing uniform creator not work well. Like civilians snatching up stuff that you'd rather they do not use, kind of like a noble mandate by the player with a few grumpy dwarves, if the materials line up with their preferences. The next question comes in from Salvadaddy, and they say, would you consider altering the lifespan of the Sponge Man to be more sponge-like? Currently, they live between 60 and 80 years, while a regular sea sponges can live for thousands. Wait, really? I didn't know that. And Tarn's response is, yeah, that's definitely a suggestion. Generally, I'd agree that the simple sponge-like alterations make sense if the biology lines up, although we've had trouble in the past making sponges too sponge-like, or at least spongy, in the sense that they've made them less killable. Another question from Major Third, and they say, I can't seem to find a full answer as to why, but is there any way to edit the engraving text phrases used when one makes a custom slab or art description? I would even love it if we could somehow have a custom text fill-in option too, if that was somehow possible. Mainly, I figured, as we should be able to at least alter the existence of the phrases being read a little bit different if desired. But the only answer I seem to get is, it's hard-coded. Is there a reason this is the case? And Tarn's response is, there isn't a way to do it currently. I'm not sure why there would be a full answer as to why, since it's just a feature that's not in the game. It takes time to do things, and I think it's fine, though generally I lean towards letting the dwarves decide how they want to memorialize somebody. As with the custom art, though, there's no reason why the player shouldn't be able to do custom stuff. Another one from Major Third, and they say, any idea when you think that you'll do more work on the way the text for engravings and artwork is utilized? Will you be adding custom line functions, or at least more to the existing lists of current options? And Tarn's response is, it's hard to say when a given thing will happen, but we have some statues and engraving artwork ready to go. there will have to be new text tags for them. Next question comes in from Hitorguchi, and they say, "Hello, I am a novice and I have a problem that has been bothering me. How do dwarves write without a pen and ink? I see dwarves writing in the library without the need for pen and ink. Will pens and ink be added in the future? Because writing in the library doesn't require a pen and ink, and it feels like words written on paper are out of thin air, and it feels strange." Another question, do dwarves not use any tools when fishing? Will fishing rods be added in the future? And Tarn quotes Patrick Lundell, so I will read the Baywatchers post first, and they say, "A lot of things are abstracted away in Dwarf Fortress. In the case of writing and the production of the material written on can be considered a stand-in for a complete set of things actually needed. It's somewhat similar to how workshops can produce things without explicit tools, or even materials for the construction of tools. And some aspects of the simulation may be expanded in the future. I believe workshops will be overhauled in some unplanned point in the future. My guess is that the answer to the question would be that it's not impossible, but we'll see what happens." And Tarn's response to Patrick is, as Patrick replied, "Many jobs don't use tools and many don't use the materials. There's a certain amount of clutter we cut to absorb in fort mode, especially, but I think ink is cool and probably makes sense, since it would be reflected in the actual product. We have some notes about it and several suggestions, I think, and I know I also have an old email about it from somebody that studies medieval inks or something like that." The next question comes in from Hitorgachi, and they say, "Will anti-piracy features be added in the future? I found that the game can be opened without starting Steam. I would just like to add, not only can you open it without starting Steam, but you can copy it and have multiple installs. This is intentional, and I will read Tarn's response in a moment." But he quotes Putnam, so I will read her response first. And Dat Wizard says, "No, Steam DRM is not in the cards, and in fact, I kind of want to make it so that the Steam version doesn't need to have the Steam API.64 DLL file lying around either. The HIO version is DRM free regardless of what the Steam version does anyway." And Tarn's addition to that response is, "Yeah, as Putnam said, no plans to add any anti-piracy stuff and potentially cause trouble for people. Things are going fine." The next is kind of a big multi-parter, so I've split it up, and it all comes in from Bottle, so I will be reading the questions and responses in order. And Bottle asks, with their first part, "Is it still the case the map rework is required before adventure mode? This means world generation is being reworked, right?" And Tarn quotes Putnam, and her response is, "Oh dear, this was never the case. What a horror world this would be. Nah, adventure mode is definitely coming out first." And Tarn's response to this is, "Yes, the replies are correct here. The map rework will be done after the adventure mode update." Part 2 of Bottle's question is, "Do you plan to add ways to influence world generation beyond parameters? Example, civ placement, prehistory terrain editor, a way to influence the chronologically, wow, I can read, of creation, design a god to be worshipped, a way to more precisely choose how many of each type of civ will be added, etc." And Tarn's response is, "In the future, yeah, this is the editor's side of the myths and magic stuff, which basically just means a bunch of ways to incorporate priests and constrained procedural stuff, in addition or replacing the more pure procedural stuff." Third part of Bottle's question is, "Are there any plans to add more interactions and consequences based on personalities and belief in the near future?" And Tarn's response is, "Aside from what comes up when we do the villains and army stuff, not really. Though the villains and army stuff includes quite a bit of this. I'm not sure what else will happen incidentally." And the final part of their question is, "I understand Putnam's focus is on multi-threading and performance enhancements. Once these are stable and performance is acceptable, what's her next focus? Bugs? New mechanics? A new feature? Adventure mode? Fortress mode? Or some combination?" And Putnam's response is, "I don't know, I'm enjoying what I'm doing." And Tarn replies, "I don't have much to add to Putnam's reply here. We don't have any fixed plan for it." The next question comes in from Falk, and they say, "Now that you have a lot more money at your disposal, have you given any thought to paying scholars on things like historical crafting methods or cooking and the tech tree, farming, etc., and when you eventually revisit them, to consult for future changes to those respective systems? There's a lot of cool broke nerds out there that would enjoy seeing their niche field of study and related books exposed on Steam, especially as academic labor strikes start up again in the fall. But I can also understand if the studying you put in is part of the fun of your job, or if that would be a throw off your long-term calculations for all the stuff that you've got now. Thanks for the answers, and for the game. And Tarn's response is, a lot of historical stuff is already reflected far beyond what's currently in the game over on the suggestions board, and there's a ton of information there already. It's been disguised a bit game-wise though. Part of the problem is doing that, which I have to do myself at some stage in the process. I'm not really sure how this would be structured or what needs to be looked at even more deeply. I know I've complained a bit about the tech tree, and it's not clear to me if some of the current suggestions, I know that there are a few extensive ones, would benefit a lot from being looked at. Probably, but I still feel pretty far away from it. The next question comes in from Rhino, and they say, I was wondering why stone cavern floors aren't color paletted per type so they match the walls. And Tarn quotes Eric Blank, and they say, probably because a lot of players found that annoying in older versions. People wanted floors to be homogeneous without having to pave over them with blocks. A toggle or something to display it mineral bedrock colors would be neat, though. I'm just going to interject here and say, who in the world complained about that? That was a wonderful feature that I miss. Anyways, let's move on. And Tarn's response is, yeah, Eric Blank's reply is right. It can be pretty distracting. Disagree! And we're toying around with trying to add muted optional colors. Other mining type games seem to make it work okay, but we'll see how it looks. Please, please, please bring that back. I didn't know that. The next question comes in from Svenor, and they say, I was wondering about animal alimentation after seeing that pandas eat bamboo in the game. I don't have any bamboo on my Embark site, but I really wanted to have a panda zoo in this fort. So I went to the raws to make them classic grazers. I commented the specific alimentation token and it made me wonder why the animal alimentation is so simple in the game, when the code seems almost complete on this part. There is a token for a specific alimentation type that goes a little beyond the grazers eat grass part from the grazers, and pandas and maybe other specific animals. They don't need any food or water to survive in my forts, and it's often become an empty rock chamber entirely populated by pigs that I open only to bring a few of them to the butcher shop. Do you intend to expand on that in the future, handling carnivores and eating other animals, etc.? And 2, if so, do you tie it in with a major feature update in particular, or do you class it in the minor tweaks group? And Tarn's response is, there's a lot to do, and of course we never got there. It's definitely all in the minor tweaks group. The major arcs are kind of set out for years and years, but lots of random minor stuff gets done during that time. The next question comes in from Beeg, and they say, will any adventure mode glitches be fixed in the Steam version? For example, will the glitch where if you fast travel after being transformed into a giant animal by a divination dice, then exit fast travel, you turn back to normal again before the week is up? Will that be fixed? And Tarn quotes Baywatcher Mike Char, and they say, Toady has mentioned he'll be making changes, which will include fixes while working on adventure mode. With respect, that one specific one, I'm not sure. One of the features of adventure mode is that whenever you fast travel, you fully heal. My somewhat faulty memory is telling me that is what was intentionally added because there was no reasonable way to heal in adventure mode. Most adventurers only take a couple of days, and it may take months to heal something. We have no potions of healing yet, and for that reason, fast travel mode heals you fully. I suspect that includes the giant animal transformation. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know. And Tarn says, as Mike Chair says, definitely some things will be fixed. I don't have prognosis on specific bugs. That particular one is the compilation of needing to track down a syndrome information and advance it properly and abstractly for historical figures, which simply isn't done, and is difficult because we don't have access to their bodies, etc. Which is a very Tarn-like response. The next question comes in from Sophentheal, and they say, as of right now, the player is informed of the outcomes of battles only upon the return of the squads they send out. In regards to the future release of better diplomacy and military management, you've talked about implementing more conventional Total War-ish 4X strategy combat, with us getting real-time view of the entire armies fighting in the army's settlements. Is the current approach of information having to travel through the world via messengers and alike going to be replaced by the player being instantly notified if anything as it happens? Or do you have some way to mitigate conflict between these two somewhat clashing systems? I personally think that the idea of mail pigeons and misunderstandings between civilizations due to an emissary not making it somewhere on time, thus resulting in a great war, would be cool. But either of these methods, if compatible, will be great. And Tarn's response is, yeah, we have the concept of messengers vaguely in the game, and we're going to expand on that. However, having the player participation in battles is also great, just for fun. So there's a balance between those, and we're going to try to strike. Probably where you can experience battles with your specific squad leaders, but if you have more forces where you haven't attacked in a fort with a squad, you'll have to hear from those in the normal way. But it's not quite clear where the balance will land. Similarly, in Adventureland, there's your created party or a single adventurer and everybody else, and you'll probably have more point of view options on your created characters. The next one comes in from Pilbo, and they say, elves aren't really much of a threat in the current build of the game. This has always been the case. I understand nothing is finished, but it made me wonder. How would you imagine elves in some finished version of the game you are working towards, as far as combat and magical abilities, wisdom or intelligence, etc., when compared to the other species? And do you think of them as being more of a threat, or will they always be less dangerous in battle than other species? Or are they deadly force once magic is in play? I am aware that the future of the game has more variety of everything in each world, and I'm more interested in how Toady imagines creatures in his headcanon. And Tarn's response is, yeah, they used to be more magical. I remember that arrows would turn into wood spike balls and make chunks pop out, and I'm not sure if that's still in the plan, though. I think that more friendship with animal people should make them more dangerous, certainly, and I'm not sure they'll ever be great at sieging the interior of a fortress, but they should be able to lock you in with their tighter by squeezing you with more nature in some manner. And they ambush and eat people, so that should feel scary in a way that it doesn't right now. And with all that being said, I'm sitting here and sweating, and we've completed the Future of the Fortress for this month. If you would like to help me afford air conditioning, you can do that by checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/BLINDIRL. And for $2 a month, you can get into these credits. Also, it is worth noting, if you're going to be in Germany, there is a Dwarf Fortress stuff happening at Gamescom, and if you're in the Seattle area and attending PAX West, I will be there, as well as Tarn will be taking part on a panel alongside of Brian Beckley of Caves of Cud, talking about procedural systems or something or another. I haven't actually looked at the schedule yet, so I don't know what day it is, but that's happening, and I'll also be there. So if you want to hang out, I don't know, reach out or something on my Discord server, and we can figure something out. All that being said, thank you very much for watching these videos, and I'm going to go take a shower because I feel like I fell into a pond. Thanks for watching.